Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another episode of the strategy series. This time we're talking about how to counter Shenron ramp. I think it's a really important video to do because this deck did take up a lot of representation at the Orlando regional, also made up a pretty good portion of the top cut, and it's a really strong deck, but we'll get into it. Before we do, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with all the awesome Dragon Ball Super content that I post here. If you guys are looking for a Dragon Ball Super community to get in touch with, make sure to hit up the Discord in the description below. Excellent group of people. If you guys want to get caught up on some competitive content or help the channel out, make sure to check out the Patreon in the description below. It really helps out a lot. And finally, guys, if you guys want to buy any of the cards listed here to help beat Shenron ramp, make sure to use my link to TCG Player in the description below. All this stuff really helps me out a lot, guys. Really appreciate every single one of you that watches my videos. With that being said, we'll get right into this. So, countering Shenron ramp, I kind of want to bring up a point as to why Shenron ramp has to exist. So, in the past, we've seen Shenron Gogeta, which is, I think everyone knows by now, a turn 4 OTK deck. You play your Shenron Figure Majesty, and then the next turn you play your Gogeta 7, and you give a crit. You just swing for 9 critical damage. You win the game. That isn't super viable anymore. I mean, it's still a good deck, don't get me wrong, but like the reason that people have to migrate to Shenron ramp is because things like Mutaito and Champa the Trickster, which we'll talk about in this video, they do stifle your basic one win condition of Gogeta 7. So Shenron ramp has evolved in order to play multiple boss monsters on those key turns and then win through a Mutaito, win through a Champa. It's a very inevitable win, but the thing with Shenron ramp is it usually gets pushed back a turn. Now sometimes they can outright kill you on turn 4. It can happen if they hit all the right ramp pieces, but a lot of times they're not ramping to 7 energy until turn 5. So let's go through the curve, right? So they go turn 2 objection, that's 3 energy. Then on the following turn, they charge to 4. Then if they like Whis with World Peace, they'll be at 5 energy. Then turn 4, you manually charge to 6. You can like free World Peace a Whis again to get to 7, but that means that you have to use your leader's ability to use a free World Peace either to get the Whis or to get like one of your threats. So typically, they're going to be at like 8 energy on turn 5. That's where they can like double World Peace, Gogeta 7, and Kaioken, and then use leader ulti to give one of them triple attack if they want to. But basically the point is the Shenron ramp deck's win turn usually gets pushed back to turn 5, but it's a bit more inevitable than Shenron Gogeta typically is. But the nice thing about that is their kill turn getting pushed back means that most decks in the game have extra time to do what they want to do and not get impeded. Even if you're playing a rogue deck, as long as you have a win condition that's like turn 4, turn 5, depending on who goes first, who goes second, you actually have a better fighting shot against Shenron ramp than you do against like typical Shenron Gogeta because you're getting killed not as fast. Rogue decks really get stomped by Shenjita, but like rogue decks that have an extra turn to play the game have theoretically a better shot against Shenron ramp. They're also ramping a whole ton, so a lot of times they'll have a little bit of a smaller hand size than Shenron Gogeta. Not like a super big difference, like maybe one to two cards different on average, but all that stuff adds up to combo power, and it all makes one heck of a difference. So we'll get into the cards on the list here. So you got the Bardock, Hope of the Sands leader. This was a very big leader that people looked at when Shenron Gogeta was rampant, like right after Storm got banned, because this leader has an inherent effect that stops those attacks. So the Awakened side is the important part. When this card is attacked, if a Bardock's crew is in your drop area, so an easy one, most splashable one would be like Borgos, you may choose one card in your life and place in the drop area. If you do, negate the attack. So if you awaken at 4 life, nice and clean, and against Shenron, you're pretty much going to have to manage that yourself. But if you do that, which there's a ton of cards to help you do that, you have basically 3 attacks you can stop, which if you look at, like a turn 7 or a 7 energy play by Shenron ramp, they've got Gogeta 7, which is 1 attack, and even though they reset your hand, doesn't really matter. Then they have Kaioken with dual attack. So that's 3 attacks right there, and if you have 4 life awakened, you have 3 attacks you can stop. So that's one way to look at it. It's a good anti-meta leader if Shenron ramp really takes up a lot of space in the room. Final Guardian, representing all the drop negates. So this is really good when they go to Kaioken you, because they'll look at this negate in your hand and be like, oh, well, if I pitch that out of your hand, it's still gonna be live in the drop area no matter what. So kind of hurts. I mean, it's still gonna pitch additional cards out of your hand to use them in your drop area, but it's better than dying, right? So usually you're going to want to pair these things up with something like we have next. So Striker Hyssop, this is really just like to represent free blockers. I use one that you don't really see all the time, just to remind you guys that it's there. But free blockers are a decent thing against Gogeta 7 and Kaioken. The one thing you do have to watch out for, though, is that 3-drop Purunga that can wipe your board. They are still playing that card, and as long as you're wide enough on the board, they'll Purunga you. get rid of whatever the most biggest problem is. So if in that situation it's like a free blocker that's preventing them from killing you, they'll just get rid of the free blockers. But if you can establish this card, get rid of the Purunga, and you have like a drop negate, that's like a really good setup to survive the turn. So just keep that in mind. Next up, we've got Gowasu, Zamasu's Master. This is to represent all of the combo Guardian cards, I think people are calling them. But basically, when you combo this card, if your leader is the appropriate color, there's one for every color except black. You discard a card, then you can either return 3 of your battle cards back to the deck, back to your own deck, or you can choose 1 battle card in your opponent's drop area and return it to their deck. So basically, this deck wants their boss monsters in the drop area more so than Shenjita does. Shenjita wants to hard cast Gogeta 7 for 5 energy by fusing. The Shenron ramp deck wants to world peace out its threats. So if you have these cards maybe sideboarded for Janemba, because they do have like a dual purpose there, they're good against Janemba, they're also good against Shenron ramp, because Shenron ramp's only playing like 2 copies of Kaioken, 2 copies of Gogeta 7, not really anymore typically, and they're playing like whatever secret they want, either Victory Strike or Goku Oob. So just getting those key targets back into their deck can make it a little bit harder for them to go off. It's also kind of neat, like in the early game, if they're really struggling for cards, you can hit their Whis Wrestling Attendant and put it back in their deck, so they can't really ramp. So that's something to keep in mind. Radiant Spirits and Gohan. This is to represent all the combo into play cards, and I bring this up because, like I said, their kill turn is pushed back 1 entire turn, which might not sound like a lot, but in Dragon Ball Super, that 1 turn extra can mean a whole lot. So if you don't have a better turn 1 play in your deck, just swing, combo one of these guys into play, and if they can't, you know, they're going into their second turn, they're going to objection, they can't really answer this guy at all. Like, they're not even going to be on Purunga yet, and this is probably going to be your only battle card on the board. So when it comes back to your turn, it's going to restand, it's going to be a 15k beater that's just going to keep picking at them for damage, and that's what you want. Same thing with Newfound Power Son Gohan. So a lot of these lists, not all of them, but a lot of these lists are not even main decking Crisis Crusher, and I love when I see that they're not main decking Crisis Crusher, because these 1-drop crit attackers are so high value. You literally play one of these on turn 1, this is going to swing at the Shenron player probably 3 times before they get it off the board with Purunga. So you're going to take 3 life, you're going to swing for 3 15k crits, and let's just say you swing a Newfound Power Son Gohan, you combo in a Raging Spirit, that's 25k crit, and you're generating an additional body. That's huge. So Trunks helping blast. We talked about free blockers, but what's better than a free blocker? A free blocker with revenge, right? So you can only control 1 your battle area, and if you have a battle card that's both red and green, you play this card for free. So it's a free 5k blocker if you're playing red green good stuff, like, you know, a rival Gogeta, if you're playing your own Kaioken deck, things like that. This card's very good. Gotrek Beerus, if you're siding it for any reason, if you're playing Janemba or you're just siding it in a blue deck, this card is excellent to side it against Shenron ramp, because, you know, if they only go for Gogeta 7, if they only go for the Kaioken and they don't have too much life to pick at, the Gotrek Beerus is going to remove that triple strike, which is going to be a key piece to you surviving. Deadly Fender 18, not as good against Shenron ramp as it is against Shenron Gogeta, because, you know, they're going to drop multiple threats, but still decent, especially if you can back it up with, again, like a drop negate or like a sparking negate if they don't have too much life to take with Kaioken. And that's another key thing too. You got to realize, like, there's no card to describe it, but I'll talk about it here. When you're going up against Shenron ramp, you really want to pressure them to low life as much as you can, because if they go back to the turn 5, if they get to 8 energy but they only have 1 life, that means they can't use Gogeta 7. It also means that they cannot use Kaioken's ability, so that's going to be really beneficial to you as well. Ready to Strike Piccolo. This card's pretty neat because, like, if you're on the play, theoretically, like, your opponent can't easily remove this with Purunga, and even if they can, like, even if you go first, or sorry, if they go first, if this is the only guy on your board, they actually can't answer it, like, straight up, I believe. And this guy is gonna kill their hand. And again, they're a ramp deck, so they're kind of killing their own hand a little bit. And this also represents hand control in general, because, you know, Shenron and ramp decks in general don't like hand control. Now, keep in mind, if you are green, to, you know, have your answers to Mercenary Tau. But to be honest, I don't think a lot of these Shenron decks are even worried about hand control. I don't think they're expecting to go up against it. I didn't see a lot of Tau in the sideboard, so that could be a deck you take and sneak a few wins here and there with, you know, people not siding Tau. Then they knew the job, of course, your standard ramp hate. Then we have Dimension Leaper Toa. So again, a revenge blocker, excellent card because you can play it in response to Gogeta 7 or in response to Kaioken. It means they can't pick it out of your hand. So what will happen is you counterplay this in response to Gogeta 7, and then their auto resolves to wipe your hand, but this is already on the board, so this card stays. And again, without Purunga, they don't have great ways to deal with blockers. It means that they're pretty much going to be forced to Gogeta 5 you at some point, which is a whole lot less threatening than them Gogeta 7ing you or dropping Kaioken on you. Force Ejection Mass Sand, one of my favorite cards in the entire game. It's so freaking good. So this is an overwhelm 1 for 3 energy, if you guys haven't seen this in a while. Now it says, if you have placed a card in your energy area during your charge phase this turn, you have less energy than your opponent, choose one of your opponent's energy and send it to their warp. So this is kind of a practical thing you need to know. It doesn't really apply to Shenron ramp because they'll typically always have more energy than you no matter what, but this checks how much energy you and your opponent have during the charge phase. So if that amount of energy changes during the turn, Force Ejection Mass Sand doesn't care. All he cares about is how much energy each player had during your charge phase. So this can come into play like if you do go first against them, but typically, like I said, they're always gonna have more energy than you. So what you do is you play this guy for 3 energy and you use his activate main. His activate main is not tied to him being overwhelmed into play. And if you're a leader or a deck that can somewhat control its awaken, you awaken, ideally untap 1 or 2 energy with your leader's awaken skill, and then you play an additional Force Ejection Mass Sand for overwhelm 3. That's super duper good because you're able to, like I said, to snipe 2 energy that turn, and if you're sniping 2 energy, they're getting set back a great deal, and they're probably not going to be able to kill you that way. Another way you can do it, if you don't have great control of your awaken, if you have like a Sensu Bean, you can play this guy for the 1 overwhelm, attack, Sensu Bean, get all 3 of your energy back up, and then drop an additional Force Ejection Mass Sand. That's just another way to do it if you don't have access to that awaken control. Mutaito, Skill of a Sage. Again, like I mentioned before, the whole reason that Shenron ramp kind of exists is to play around this card and Champa the Trickster, but you're still going to use this card, right? So you still want to use this card in response to like a Gogeta 7, in response to a Kaioken, probably in response to the Kaioken if you can manage it, because the if they're using their leader's ability to free world peace, that means that the Gogeta 7 is not super threatening on its own. And Kaioken's a lot more threatening because it's got the triple strike dual attack. So ideally, if you can hold it for the Kaioken, that's going to be really helpful. But typically, they're going to go Gogeta 7 you first, so you're going to probably be forced to do it then. But if you're lucky enough, you happen to draw back into Mutaito or draw back into Champa, you definitely want to Champa or Mutaito that Kaioken, because that's going to be the real kill pressure. They're going to pick your hand apart after the Gogeta 7 with the Kaioken. Next up, Caulifla, Troublemaker of Universe 6. A few things to talk about here. Universe 6 is probably the premier aggro deck of the format. This is something you want to play if you just want to destroy Shenron ramp. Now, I'm not saying it's like an auto win 100% to 0%, but like they do have a problem dealing with aggro. Like I said, they kind of pick at their own hand with the ramp stuff. They're Shenron's never been really able to deal with aggro very efficiently. And another card I want to bring up too is Caulifla, Troublemaker, because like if you're playing, you know, X yellow deck, maybe it's Broly Headed Mastery, maybe it's Broly Swap, maybe it's just some random yellow deck. This is a generic card you can play in your yellow deck to tap them out. So a lot of times what Shenron ramp wants to do is they want to keep 1 blue open at all times and just Whis' Coercion, Whis' Coercion, Whis' Coercion, Whis' Coercion. They play 4 of it, and they want to just free negate basically every single turn without taking life so that they can get their Kaioken off. But if you tap that 1 blue energy with this card, Caulifla Troublemaker, for 1, it does that, and for 2, it takes a life, so it helps yourself awaken. That's going to be really, really huge. And the 10k body is also relevant for when they're on their unawakened side. So guys, all in all, this is the list of cards that I've come up with that help you beat Shenron ramp. Now, this is not like the concise list. This is not the entire list. There are plenty more cards out there that help you. Some of the same cards listed here for different colors, but also there's also other good cards to help beat the matchup. So in the comments below, guys, let me know what you guys use to beat Shenron ramp. It really helps the community out a lot. Really helps me out a lot. Again, there's just like ideas for you guys to pick at, ideas for your guys' brains to help beat Shenron ramp. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Again, if you want to buy any of these cards, please use my link to TCG Player in the description below. Really helps the channel out a lot, guys. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.